right, it's me. It's Johnny D, the motivational cowboy, with this week's episode of the Outstanding Life podcast. And in the house with me right now, literally in my house.
We're in your house, man.
I know. Mark
cool.
Knope in the house,
Thank
man.
you.
What's going on?
I'm glad to be here, Johnny.
Man, it's been a few months now, but we're finally together.
Yes.
The Christmas is over. The New Year's is over. And I'm like, before we both get busy, we both get on the road, get your butt over here so we can get this podcast done.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, listen, before we even get things kicked off, it's been about 10 or 12 years since I saw you live on stage. I'm just wondering if you brought maybe a sample of your new material with you that maybe the listeners we can kick things off with.
Wow, it's amazing. We must be on the same wavelength. I just happen to have one with me.
You do?
I do. And I don't know if I should set this up for you.
Set it up, man.
We both raised here in Michigan.
Yep.
And obviously it's a cold weather state.
It's cold out right now. It's snowing when you got here.
I don't know about you, Johnny D, but I don't care if I was born here or not. I hate the cold. I hate the mess. I hate the slush, the snow. I don't like it at all. And I don't like snowmobiles.
Okay.
And that's what this next little clip is all about.
All right, we're going to listen to it right now.
Sounds good. I hate snowmobiles. Always get a couple in the crowd, a couple guys going, "What's the matter, man? What's the matter?" It's not like they want to fight me. They just want to thaw out their nipples from the previous February, that's all. I don't hate snowmobilers. I hate the machines they ride. That's my point here. You do whatever you want to do in the wintertime. God bless you. That's what you want to do, go you do. I can accomplish the same thing taking the roof and doors off my car. The reason why I hate the machines, I was in Traverse City, Michigan, a couple of Januaries ago doing a corporate event for a company, and things were way behind schedule. Didn't get on stage that night till about 1:45 in the morning. By the time I finished my set, got off stage, had a couple of drinks, got paid, went back to my room, decompressed, and fell asleep. It was about 4:15 in the morning. At approximately 6:08 a.m., I was awakened to why? Why hasn't someone invented a muffler for these things? I tossed and turned a better part of an hour, finally gave up. I packed my bags, went to the front desk, I checked out of the hotel. Drove about 10 miles, got to a little town called Mesick, Michigan. Realized I'm almost out of gas, better fuel up for the rest of the ride home, okay? So I did. As I'm going in to pay, who walks in right behind me? The Michelin Man. This guy's wearing like 11 layers of snowmobile clothes. How he was able to pee is beyond me. Never mind. I think the first 5 layers just a big diaper. I'm inside waiting for my change. I'm at the counter. The clerk has her back to me. She's at the register. He walks in. He walks right back. He's bumping into me. He's waving his arms. He's trying to get the clerk's attention. He finally does, and he asks her for a snowmobile trail map. I said, "You got to be kidding me. You mean to tell me they actually make a map to tell you where you can and cannot? Neat. It's like, "Yeah, man, we've been having fun all morning." I said, "No kidding. Since about 6:08 by my count there, pal. Mr. Twinkie." It's like, whatever. So before she turned around, I asked her if she'd grab not one, but 2 maps. One for me, one for my new friend Twink. And she did. I went back to Traverse City 4 months later. I planted trees. Whoever got that gig the next year, I'm sure it went neat. Is that an M80? Maple. Night.
So you hate snowmobiles. So you probably hate the sound then.
You're very adept. You picked up that. How's it go? I hate snow. I love sleep.
Right.
So there you go.
And, and it's so funny because we are on the road a lot, both of us.
Absolutely.
And isn't that funny how you talk about getting done with your gig and you have to decompress. People
Yes.
always say, well, we just talk for a living. It's easy. All you do is talk.
Right.
All you do is talk.
Well, and the thing is too, Johnny, I mean, many years ago when I was in college, college educated comedian here. CMU, go Chips. But I worked factory jobs, in the summers. And if I got, swing shift or an afternoon shift, and you come home after working and what have you, just like the other, you can't go right to sleep.
Right.
And people that work shift work like that, they know what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're from Wyandotte, Michigan. Now I didn't know this until last night, buddy. Wow, you even have the shirt on today. What, are you going to the hockey game?
I am going to the hockey game.
That's
I'm
funny.
going, my best friend growing up, his son plays for Detroit Country Day High School, and they're playing Wyandotte tonight. So that's why I'm wearing the shirt under the shirt.
So Wyandotte, your father, I saw, was a firefighter.
Yes. Yeah, Dad was a career firefighter.
Wow.
Almost 33 years. And amazing job. I mean, but he was gone half the time, obviously, because that was back in the day when they worked 24-hour shifts.
Yep.
And so my mom, 25-30% of my life was my dad.
Yeah.
Okay. And my mom was a tiny 5'2", 5'3", probably weighed $118. And there was times in the summer, when I was 13, 14 years old, I pitched, playing summer league baseball.
Right.
And Mom knew I was heading out to Pulaski Park or Memorial Field for a game.
Yep.
And I was jumping on my bicycle. And she'd go, okay, let's go warm you up. So she'd grab the catcher's mitt.
No kidding.
She'd squat down in front of the garage door. And I'd throw her a dozen or 15 pitches, and she'd tell me, "You're not following through. Come on, touch your ankle, whatever." And
so are you the only child?
No. I'm one of three. I'm the middle child.
Okay,
shocker. and I've got an older sister, and I've got a younger sister. So I consider myself what? Yes, the rose between two thorns. My sisters have always given me grief, Johnny, that I was Mom's favorite. Okay, which come on, I'm the only boy.
Right.
Okay, I'll take that,
Right.
And God bless her soul, my mom, her water broke on my birthday that year, December 11th. Mm-hmm. And for the rest of her life, I spent walking on that water in her eyes. So
I love it. So your dad was a firefighter. Did you ever think in a million years, or did you grow up thinking that you were going to be a firefighter too? Because it seems like all little boys and girls these days, because I just had somebody on my podcast that they're going to be getting married, and they're both firefighters. And she knew when she was very young that she wanted to be a firefighter. Did you think that that's what you were going to do because Dad did it, or would?
You're enamored by what your dad does,
right?
And of course, firefighter. And you go, and there was times on holidays or weekends. Sometimes Mom would take us there, and the coup de grace of every trip to visit Dad at work was him going upstairs into the barracks area, the sleep area, and he'd go down the pole for us. Okay, that was like his grand finale. Was
he a firefighter in Wyandotte?
Yes.
So was he stationed over there by the Yak Arena in that really sweet, cool one that they just redid?
Well, he spent time at all three of the different fire stations at one time or another.
Okay.
But he spent a good chunk of his, especially the last bit of his career, that we call that station number 1 right there at Maple and 3rd.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
That's so cool, man. So why comedy?
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, you already said you went to college.
Yes.
And what did you study?
Broadcasting, with a applied arts degree in broadcasting with a minor journalism PR kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, it was one of those things where life John Lennon, what was it? Life is what happens when you're busy doing other things.
Yeah.
And, I got married before I got out of college. And things, took a left turn as far as broadcasting was concerned. I was in sales at the behest of my Sicilian in-laws. And their feeling was, hey, you can make a lot more money more quickly if you did something other than broadcasting,
Yeah.
And hey, you're a fun guy. You got the gift of gab. You should be in sales, And yeah, I mean, I could cold call my butt off.
Yep.
I could demonstrate product. I was a good presenter.
What did you sell?
Oh, well, let me pull out the list here for you, Johnny. Gosh, first thing out the door, I worked for Xerox. I worked for an independent distributor of copier products, Canon and Sharp for a while. I sold commercial insurance for a while. I sold personalized insurance for a while.
Hey, this is only an hour show, man. Okay.
Okay, page 2. Yeah.
So you were married?
I was.
Kids?
Yes. Well, only one that I'm aware of.
Right.
I've got a son, and he's a major in the Marine Corps.
Oh.
And he flies helicopters for a living.
How cool is that? Huh?
He himself is married. He's got 3 children, and he's the son my dad always wanted because he's got a cool job with a check every 2 weeks, and that kind of thing. So,
well, thank you to your son for serving our country.
Well, and I think about him all the time in that light, as well as just I'm very proud of him.
Yeah. What does he think of Dad being a comic?
Well, interestingly enough, gosh, I'm trying to think. I was probably doing this 12, 14, 15 years before he ever actually got to see me perform.
Yeah.
And it was weird. He was coming into Michigan. He was living out of state.
Yeah.
He was coming into Michigan, and he was only going to have like a day or so in the Detroit area. He was headed, I think, to Grand Rapids or whatever it might have been. And it just so happened that week I was working at the old Joey's Comedy Club in Livonia.
Yeah, yeah.
So the stars lined up, and I said, well, shoot, I want you to come see my show that night. Well, it's always a crapshoot on a Wednesday or Thursday if you're going to have much of a crowd, what they're going to be like, blah, blah, blah. Well, it just so happened, again, stars lined up, and the office at Joey's had lined up like 5 different fundraisers. The place was packed. In fact, the original table I had him seated at, he had to move like 3 times for people that had bought tickets.
Right.
So he got to see me in front of a full house, and it was a crush show, thank God, and it was cool. Afterwards I'm going like, so what'd you think? And he was just kind of like, he never saw me in that kind of capacity before, and he was like, well, that was cool. He goes, it was different,
Yeah.
and it was,
And I asked that because I know what and how my daughter responds when people ask her, your dad's the motivational cowboy. And she's like, listen, man, my dad's just a regular guy. He's the guy that says, hey, pull my finger when I was 6, I mean, there's nothing special about him. He's just my dad.
Exactly. And it's funny,
and that's
too.
why I asked you that.
Well, so often, I mean, people too, if they meet you casually, you got to be really careful. And you probably run into this as well. Sometimes when people, hey, blah, blah, you're on an airplane, you're in between gigs or doing something, traveling. And, so what do you do? Well, you got to size the situation up real quick.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially if you're tired on the plane. As soon as you say you're a motivational speaker, they want to tell you their whole story, which is fine.
Yes.
So there's sometimes I hurry up and put my headphones on and I don't say nothing to nobody.
I cannot tell you, Johnny, how many times people have said, what do you do for a living? And I go, I deliver. I'm not lying.
That's right.
I deliver punchlines.
Or punchlines, yeah. I love that. So I read that you call yourself a born-again bachelor.
Bachelor, yes. I coined that phrase.
Did you like how I set that up?
I did. I was waiting for the drum roll. No, and that was probably one of the first things I
love that.
shoot.
As soon as I seen it, I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Well, many years ago, coincidentally enough, let's roll back the calendar, Johnny. It was around the time of my getting a divorce. And that was around the same time I started doing stand-up. Parallels. Let's think about this. And actually it was at the behest actually of my now former wife. Mm-hmm. She had seen an audition notice in the newspaper for stand-up comics, and this is before there was even a full-time comedy club in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is where we were living at the time. And it had come out in counseling, he never really got to pursue broadcasting and went in a different direction and this and whatever. And she saw this audition notice and she's like, well, maybe you should give it a try. What was that?
That was my unique Pretzels from PA, buddy, that you just dropped. And hey, listen, you could have just said, Johnny, can I have one of those brand new pretzels that just came out a month ago that you saw upstairs that you put in your bag and brought them down here to the recording studio?
Talk about dropping a hint.
Listen, dude, these guys I met at a NASCAR race. And I want you to get back to your story, but Unique Pretzels, they are my favorite pretzels that you're eating right now. That
I was not crunching. Is it showing up on the air?
6 generations. Justin is just such a cool dude, and this is a brand new pretzel they just came out with, and pretty good, huh?
I love it. It's how to explain it about a pretzel, but it's well, it's back in the day when I quaffed more beer. They got you got the skinny pretzels,
yeah,
and you got this is kind of in the middle of the tube,
yeah,
and you know, some pretzels are like just you feel like all you're doing is just chawing on salt, and that's not the case here.
No, and check this out. They're in rings, and you put this over your beer bottle while you're drinking. You're going to eat it, huh?
Oh, nice marketing
Just
angle.
saying.
I like that.
Yeah. So Unique Pretzels. They're
delicious.
The coolest thing is like NASCAR fans, when I'm out there doing the Chevy stuff or doing the motivational stuff, it's so funny because fans love to bring you things.
Oh, I bet.
And all the people from PA always, it doesn't matter what race I'm at, it seems like every single weekend somebody's finding these pretzels and bringing them to me because
Nice.
you can only get them in PA. But I just found out here in Michigan, I found a place right up the road.
Yeah?
Italian place that is now selling them.
How do you stay in this kind of shape if people are
So
bringing truckloads of pretzels left and right?
I tell you what, it's tough. But I just had to say, you could have just said, hey, Johnny, can you open the bag of pretzels instead of dropping them right here? You know what I mean?
Oh, they're
Anyways,
awesome, though.
If you're looking for a good pretzel, go see my buddies. It's Unique Pretzels out of PA. And I'll tell you what, you will not be sorry. They're
Do
incredible.
they have a website? Or?
Yeah, uniquepretzels.com.
Awesome.
So there you go.
Check it out.
Get back to your story. So you were talking about. She said she found this ad.
Yeah, it was just a classified too. It wasn't like anything, you know. And she said, "Why don't you give this a shot? It'd be a way for you to vent your creativity." And I think she meant it sincere, but there was that little bit of sarcasm. You know, come on,
So
Mr.
were you
Funny
practicing?
Man. You know, what's that?
Like were you practicing at this point?
No.
For her to even say that to you?
Oh no.
She just thought you were funny and
No, I didn't say that. but she was just kind of, you know, you creative. You think give it a shot, you know. So I was supposed to do 5 minutes.
Yeah.
First time out of the shoot, supposed to do 5 minutes, and you know, in your mind you're trying to figure out what's funny, what's a joke. I didn't take any class. There was no classes back then. There was no, and so I put together what I thought was 5 minutes of material. Well, my mistake for this very first time, Johnny, was I had left spaces in between what I thought were some of the jokes for laughter and applause. Never quite materialized. So that 5 turned into about 3.5 real quick.
Right, yeah.
So
where was the open mic at?
It was actually at a place called the New Chinatown Restaurant in Albuquerque. So it was basically the banquet room of a Chinese restaurant in New Mexico.
I'm waiting for the punchline.
That's the whole thing.
So your opening mic night, your first time ever doing comedy, was at a Chinese restaurant.
In a Chinese restaurant. Yep. It was in a little side banquet room, probably half full, probably had 40, 45 people in there. And, I mean, no backdrop, no stage. I mean, you're standing on the carpet.
Yeah. Got
a microphone and, honestly, probably got 2 or 3 what I would now consider to be very polite chuckles in 3.5 or 4 minutes, and it was brutal. On the way out,
Isn't that amazing how people think, oh, it's only 5 minutes?
Oh.
So on the way out, what?
Now I can't say my name in 5 minutes, but on the way out, I approached the producer of the show, and I was very polite. I stayed for the whole show, and on my way out, I said, I just want to tell you thank you. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity tonight, but I promise I won't be back, and I won't bother you again. And he just looked at me. He's like, not coming back again. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, and I said, dude, were you in the bathroom for those 4 minutes? Remember when it was real quiet and you were reaching for the toilet paper? That was me. And he's like, no, he goes, not everybody gets it right the first time. He goes, you know, write a song, change some things, edit it, you know, do impressions, juggle, whatever. You know, it's open, you know, it's open mic. You do whatever you want just to get, you know, do what you got to do to get laughs.
Wow, how nice.
Yeah, and I'm
Did
like,
you go back?
To this day, I don't know if I should thank the man or curse him.
Right.
But yeah, I started going back, and honestly, there are people that were there that very first night who I am still friends with to this day.
Wow.
Some in person, and some are, you know, we've reconnected through Facebook. But I mean, Bill Resnick, Bob Asta, Neil Edwards, actually Mark Maron was there that first night. His father's a physician in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
He was in Albuquerque at that time. Then there were some other characters who can't describe their path in life, but there was a guy, Alpine Bob. There was just some crazy characters that some stayed in the game, some didn't, but there's still 4 or 5 that still perform. And
so where do you live now?
Well, as you know, I hate the cold weather.
Yeah.
And I bought a condominium not too terribly long ago, and I had to move south. I just don't tolerate cold weather very well. I live in Toledo now. And
wait a second. Well, I always tell people I am from the South, the very southern part of Detroit.
There you
go. That's why it's a little bit warmer
You're
down
the one
here.
Journey was talking about, right? Well, yeah, and I joke about it that I moved south, and people, you're in Toledo, and I'm like, well, yeah. I said I figure if every 6 or 7 or 8 years, if I move another 50 miles south, I figure by the time I'm 90, I'll be in Cincinnati.
Oh my God, that is too
living the high life.
Funny. So, your first time up on stage, did you practice a lot? Or
I was on carpet, actually, no stage. No, I'm teasing.
So, you're right. You did say you were on the floor.
Yes.
Did you practice a lot?
Well, yeah. I mean, but I didn't know any better. And,
right.
And the weird thing is, and it's kind of misnomer. People ask you a lot of times, even at this stage, people go, "Do you do your new bits? You do them like in a mirror at home?" No. Mirrors don't laugh.
Right. True.
Really, the only place now a musician can sit there at home and work out the notes and the fingering and the fretting and what have you, and they can get things better.
Okay, let me ask you this though. Just because we kind of do the same thing, I do practice a little bit in the mirror just because I want to get my hand movements, because you can be funny.
Funny how? Funny like a clown?
Well, here, by pausing a little bit longer, by facial expressions.
Sure.
So those are the things that I do once in a while, still practice. Not as much because I don't have to anymore. I've been doing it for 20 years.
Right.
But when I'm working on new material, I will watch how I look in the mirror to see, because if I think it's funny or if I look goofy, then I don't do it unless I'm trying to be funny. So you don't do none of that no more?
Not really.
Okay.
And it's funny you mentioned that one thing where you said when I'm talking and when I'm not talking. Mm-hmm. A lot of public speakers don't realize the power of silence. I didn't the first 10 or 15 years. And sometimes it's just a matter of a couple of seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it can really either drive home a point, draw out a laugh, whatever. The silence can be used for a purpose on stage.
It's so funny because my material 15 years ago is half now.
Sure.
Because I learned how to tell the story better.
Sure, absolutely.
And there's something to be said about that, because, I mean, you're basically a storyteller.
Absolutely. Yeah, who would have ever thought 30 or 40 years ago that, hey, let's go to Storyteller Club.
Right.
Because there's people up on stage telling stories.
So were you the class clown in school?
Not officially. If you're going back to high school, I was more of a class wit, but the actual class clown, and this is honest. The truth is funnier than stuff you can write sometimes.
Right, absolutely.
My senior class in high school at good old Teddy Bear High in Wyandotte was the
You went to
class
Roosevelt?
I did. Yes,
that's a beautiful school.
It is. It's got some character, and some characters have graduated.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
but the class clown in my graduating class was a classmate by the name of Ned Lynch. Okay, and Ned was a funny dude. Okay, mm-hmm. I'll grant him that because I wasn't in competition back then, right?
Right.
Okay, here's the clicker. Ned, for the last 30-some years, has been a corporate attorney on the West Coast. I was class president. Now I've been telling jokes for 30 years. How do you like that for a switcheroo, kids?
Wow. What goals have you set for yourself since you became a comedian?
Well, probably, I guess the big thing was, A, just support myself doing this. Mm-hmm. B, I was able to buy a place to live.
Yeah.
And for those of you out there, I didn't just buy that beautiful condo in Toledo. I've had that for a few years. Thank you very much. But that and avoiding the IRS. Just those three things right there. If I can just, I'm teasing.
Well, no, trust me, that's a sore spot with me just because being self-employed for as long as I have,
right.
I have gotten in trouble with the IRS. Well, it's funny how $13,000 turns into almost 40 when you don't pay your taxes and interest and penalties and everything else add up.
Yep.
Yep. I've been there.
I had a little issue back in the day when I first got started, and it was funny. Probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 years into doing stand-up, one day I'm at my parents' house and my dad goes, how does this work? How do you get taxed? Do they keep the clubs? And I looked at him, I go, taxed? And my dad looked at me and goes, oh, Mark. And I go, what? And I just said, we'll get this worked out one of these days.
Yeah.
Well, one day I get a letter from the IRS, and it said, basically, we have a question about your return from tax year 1994.
Yeah.
Well, I knew they were bluffing because that document did not exist. But a couple years earlier, my dad had sent me a little article from the Detroit paper about a CPA, an accountant in the Detroit area who specialized in, people who got off the path, whatever.
Yeah.
And, I kept it in my briefcase all those years. Yeah, we used briefcases back then, kids.
I know.
we used briefcase. We had books that we would write down our schedule. We had pens. And then I made the phone call to the CPA's office, and the woman on the other end sounded like anybody's grandmother, and she's like, well, she goes, I'll set up an appointment with you and Jim. She says, first I'll need your social security number. And I said, yeah, it's not going to happen. How do I know you're not a front for the IRS for crying out loud? She goes, I hear that 4 or 5 times a week. And she just buttered me up, and I gave her the info she needed. And he got me back on track. And
so do life experiences like that end up in your shows?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe not that one in particular.
No, I know, but yeah.
But I would have to guess that probably 70-75% of everything I talk about on stage started from an actual event in my life or something I actually personally observed.
So do you talk about family too in your shows?
A little bit. And over the years, some of those bits have come and gone and what have you. But there's one in particular that just in the last few years, and it's almost like my tribute joke to my dad, if you will.
Yeah.
Because I talk about how close he and I were, and especially the last 4 or so years after my mom had passed. But his hearing had gotten bad, say the last 20, 25 years of his life. And I attribute that a lot to the trucks he drove, fire engines,
absolutely,
that kind of thing. And so he spent a lot of money. He went to the hospital in Wyandotte to the audiologist, got tested. John, he got digital hearing aids like 25 years ago, which was a big deal back then.
Right.
And he had to keep going back and get them retuned and recalibrated. He never got the satisfaction he wanted. He finally decided, last 5 or 6 years of his life, hey, I'm going to put these in the cupboard. I'm not going to wear them anymore. If somebody wants to talk to me, they just got to get my attention, and he'll respond, huh?
Right.
Or what? And then if he was looking at you, he had no problem. He had no problem following the conversation. Right. And that was fine if you weren't with my dad all the time. It was no big deal. I was with him a lot.
Right.
So I had to figure out a creative way to elicit his attention, with whatever means possible.
Yeah.
That made it fun for me, until it backfired one day.
What happened?
Well, we were sitting in his living room. We're sitting about 6 or 8 feet apart from each other in a couple of lazy boy chairs. And I knew my dad had just put his car in the shop. So to get his attention, I was like, hey, Pop, do the Golden Girls still give you a boner? My dad turns and goes, huh? I said, yeah. I go, the guys at Earl's, did they give you a loner? My dad just looked and shook his head and went back to his crossword, and he just said, only Betty White.
Oh, you knew exactly what you were saying.
Yes, he did.
Let me ask you this. You've been doing this for how long?
This is January, right?
Yep.
I got to look at my calendar. Hang on. Let me get my phone out so I can look at my calendar. March 21st will be 33 years since that night when I stepped on carpet at the Chinese restaurant in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
33 years. A lot has changed since then. Are there a lot of things, or are there things that you can't talk about or that you don't talk about on stage anymore because it's not, quote, quote, politically correct?
I think there are. But for me personally, not that much, because I've never been a person who talks a lot about politics, and I've never done a lot of current event type stuff. And there was a reason for that. And that dates back to my laziness in high school. Because politics and current events has a shorter shelf life. Okay? You do a bit about, X or Y, and it's something in the news today. Well, 2-3 months down the road, that's yesterday's news. You better replace it with something.
Right.
And a few of the things that I have done over the years that started with a news event hopefully were written in more of a timeless way that the shelf life extended itself.
So do you come up with your own material then? Do you write your own material? Do you have a writer? Do you have a ghostwriter? How do you?
I do my own, and no one else will take the blame.
Have you ever bought a joke?
Not with money, per se. Well, but what I mean by that, let me clarify.
Please.
What I meant by that, is there's honor amongst thieves to a degree, and it's quite often, especially if you're working with, a comic you're familiar with. Because you've got, like, let's say you and I have done shows together before.
Right.
And I'm doing a bit you've never seen before, and after the show, I'm walking to the back of the room, and you come up and you go, "Hey, Mark, that bit you do? I've never heard you do it before tonight, but have you ever thought about tagging it this way? Or have you ever thought about possibly adding something to this?" So other comics have, because they see it from sometimes a slightly different perspective.
Absolutely.
So. And when it's coming from somebody that you respect or somebody that you go, "Hey, this guy's, I like his style and I like his, point of view sometimes," or whatever. So yes, I've gotten material, tags and stuff like that. And when I say a tag, it's like, generally speaking, you've got a setup for a joke or a bit, and you might have an initial punchline or a couple punchlines. A tag is sometimes that it's a related secondary punchline kind of thing. And I'll get the chalkboard out here in a second. I'll diagram the joke here. Let's go to the tape.
So let me ask you this: do you, as a comic, do you you don't practice them? Have you ever used other people's material like that, maybe that have passed and stuff like that?
Never, never intentionally.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, again, there's times over the years. Okay, case in point. Man. I'm trying to remember the guy's name, and I'm drawing a blank, and I feel so bad. I won't reference the joke then because I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head. But there was I do a couple of different jokes in my act about golf, and there was a friend of mine from Wisconsin, and he used to have this joke in his act that to me was just hilarious.
Yeah,
and it's a quick little kind of setup, boom, punchline, and I just looked at him one night after we did this. The first time I heard him do it, I said, "I got to ask you a question." He said, "What's that?" I said, "I don't want to buy the joke because I know it's a great joke in your act." I says, "If I'm ever doing a private party at a golf course, like a country club, or at a golf outing, can I do that joke?" And he just looked at me and goes, "Oh, yeah, absolutely. No problem." I said, "I promise that's the only place I'll ever do it. It'll never go on a CD. It'll never,
yeah."
And, but yeah, man, that was... And now everybody out there's going, "What's the joke?"
I know. Now it's like, I want to know what it is. Who are some of the comics that you idolized or that inspired and motivated you over the years?
Well, my first two influences ever in my life, as far as stand-up is concerned, and they're in my liner notes on my first CD, Bill Cosby and George Carlin.
Okay.
And they couldn't be any more...
I was going to say, holy God, they're totally so far apart.
Polar ends, yeah. And I know Cosby's had his issues over the last few years, and that's not where this leads.
No, right, I got you.
Back in the day, I had so many of his albums on vinyl. Wonderfulness, Why Is There Air, To Russell, My Brother, Whom I Slept With,
Yes.
and then I got turned on a couple of years later to Carlin, AM, FM, Class Clown. It was a couple of years before I realized what Toledo window box really meant. So,
what do you like when you're not on stage? I mean, I see you like this right now. We hear you, but what are you like when you're not performing or when you don't have a microphone in your face?
I'm not on. Like we were talking earlier, you could bump into me anywhere, whether it's a restaurant or shopping at Meijer or whatever it might be. You'd never know. You'd never know I was a comedian or a performer.
Do you ever get sick of somebody when they ask you what you do and you actually are in the mood to tell them that you're a comedian and they say, "Make me laugh"? Or tell me a joke.
Yes, that's anybody out there listening? That is the brutal sin. That's the cardinal sin. if you ever meet a comedian, especially away from a comedy club, don't say make me laugh, or don't say tell me a joke. And the second thing is, if you see them, don't go up after a show and say, I got a joke you can use in your little skit.
Have you ever used a joke that somebody told you, like, that did tell you something after the show?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Usually they're beat up street jokes.
I know, I get it.
And usually they're either so foul or filthy or racist that I can't believe, especially if it's after a show.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody will come up and go, hey, I got a joke. Maybe you can use sometime. Feel free to use it, blah, blah, blah. And they start the jokes. And I, in my mind, I'm just trying to think, what on earth was it that you just saw me do for the past hour that would remotely make you think that I could do that on stage, you know?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Is there, if somebody wanted to get into comedy, what would you do different, or what would you tell them to do that you did differently back then?
Stop. Don't do it. Stay with your real job.
Is there a good age?
Have your family love you. What's that?
Is there a good age?
You know, whatever age you are, honestly. I got into it when I was, almost 28, 29 years old. I thought I was late coming to the party.
God, that's so crazy. We have so much in common, because I started speaking, and at 28, I said to myself, if I don't make it in 2 years, I'll get a real job.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm still doing it today. But
my dad gave me 5. Okay, we must have had this conversation when I was very early on, and I was I was hanging out at his house one time, and this is more than 5 years. It's probably 6 or 7 years into working the road and so forth. And my dad said, hey, Mark, he goes, I've been thinking about something. I go, what's that, Pop? He goes, well, remember a while back you said you're going to give this comedy thing like 5 years, and then after that you'd get a job, you know?
Yeah.
And I looked at him. So again, reached over, briefcase, pulled out my planner, and at that time the planner opened up a month at a time, and any date that was booked, I had a highlighter that went through those days. And I said, and this is back when clubs and places were booking out 8, 10, 12, 15 months at a time.
Yeah.
There was a few times I was booked out over a year, back in the early 90s. And I just looked at my dad, I'm flipping through all these months, and I go, Pop, if I quit now, I'm going to have to call all these people back and cancel all this. And my dad he threw his hands and said, hey, you know better than I do. I'm just saying, okay. He goes, all right.
So your son heard you do stand-up. Did your dad ever go see you?
Yes. Yeah, actually.
What was that like?
And actually, after a while, the first time, Johnny, I was living in San Francisco, which was actually my third comedy town. I started in Albuquerque, New Mexico, probably 10, 12 months into doing stand-up. I moved to Houston, Texas. Yeah, her name was Pamela. I moved to Houston, and my post-divorce fantasy girlfriend. And I lived in Houston for, I can't remember, 15, 16 months or whatever it might have been, and did shows there, but, again, mostly open mic type things. Occasionally, somebody tossed me an MC gig or whatever. And from there, the company I was working a day job with offered to transfer me to San Francisco. And I'm thinking, okay, awesome. At the time, my son was living in Sacramento with his mom,
right,
and his stepdad, and plus San Francisco had just a thriving comedy scene, and so let's do San Francisco.
Yeah,
and so I end up out there in San Francisco, and I've been flapping my gums. I forget what the original question was. Now, wait a minute.
It's kind of funny. I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, this is going so good that I'm just like, I don't even know what I even asked you at that point.
What is he flapping?
Oh, no, because I had asked you about your dad.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. I had to go back in my notes. I was like, oh, where was I? I was already on three questions past that.
So after I'd been living in San Francisco 6 or 8 months, my parents had never traveled to the West Coast. They wanted to come out. They wanted to visit me and then go up to Sacramento and visit my son and his family. And so they came out. Well, it just so happened that I had a guest spot already scheduled at a club a little ways away from where I was living at the time in Concord, California, a place called Tommy T's. And so I said, hey, you guys have to come out. It's a late show. It's Friday night. I had to work my all day at my leather store, went and got them, took them, whatever. And I'm only doing maybe 8-10 minutes, maybe tops.
Yeah.
Okay. They put me on, I think, after the MC. I did my guest spot, then the rest of the show. And it was a pretty big crowd, 150, 200 people, as I recall. Friday night, we're all going out to our cars. Now, I'm wondering, I go, well, what'd you guys think? And my dad, he was still kind of reserved about it. He was old German, Well, he goes, it was different. It was okay. They laughed, And I'm looking at my mom. I go, well, Mom, my mom's name was Blossom, by the way. So
her real name was Blossom.
That was her name.
Awesome.
Awesome Blossom.
Right.
And she fancied herself almost like a little hippie from South Rockwood, Michigan. And Mom was very you'd have to know her, but basically when I asked her what she thought of what I'd done that night, she looked at me very wide-eyed and just said, Mark, I only saw half of it. And I'm like, Mom, I was up there not even 10 minutes. I said, would you get up and go to the bathroom halfway through my set, She goes, no. She said, half of it I watched you. The other half I watched everybody else watch you because I wanted to make sure they were getting the jokes.
How cute was
Mom
that?
was protective even at that point in my life. Yeah,
that
30
is
years
so
old.
Cool. If this didn't work out, what do you think you would be doing for a living?
I don't know. I didn't have a plan B. I honestly,
I love that. You didn't have a backup plan.
I really didn't.
You're going to make it work.
No. I don't know.
No, it's fine. I mean, I just I have told people in the past, I'm like, you know what? When I quit my corporate job to be a speaker, it's like I burned every bridge, so I couldn't go back.
Sure.
And people are like, well, I never quite looked at it like that before.
Yeah.
We've always been told not to burn the bridge, but
Sure.
you burned it down. I'm like, yeah, because I didn't want to go back.
Almost like your Tom Cruise moment when he gave his diatribe in Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you weren't the class clown, but you have definitely made a living doing this now. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. Is there a stage that you, in your mind, would still love to perform on?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the next one, I always look forward to the next one. But I mean, God, what performer wouldn't love to tour theaters? And here's the thing, there's always this this comes up frequently, especially nowadays with all these showcase open mics at bars and this kind of thing. And so I headline this such, and the definition, is if you're a headliner, if you're booked to headline, you're actually someone that people are paying to come see.
Right.
You've got some marquee value, some recognition. Otherwise, you're the last person on the show, or what we call the closer. You close the show out. Yep. Okay. People may call me or refer to me sometimes as a headliner in clubs and fundraisers and such. I'm the closer.
Yeah.
I'm the guy with the most experience, hopefully, or, whatever.
Yeah.
But it would be cool to have gotten to that point, to have been a headliner.
Okay.
Would I love to work Vegas someday? Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
I was supposed to work Vegas. Oh man, this is probably 20 years ago. At the Maxim, a friend of mine, I was passing through town. I gave him a holler. He goes, "Oh, come on up." Blah blah blah. I'm working. He was working. I think at the Maxim. I think it was the sister club to the Riviera at the time.
Okay.
And he goes, "Hey, come on down." He goes, and actually, he goes, every time I'm here, at least once, he goes, myself and the general manager of the club, he goes, we go hang out at happy hour, have appetizers and that kind of thing. You can join us. You can meet the guy. Okay. And that's what this job's all about.
Yeah.
Especially, when you're first starting out, it's about networking. It's about making connections.
It's about relationships.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Undoubtedly. And a lot of times it's, if you do a show with somebody and either they see promise or they dig your style or whatever it might be, then the next thing you know, they might open a door for you.
That's right.
They take you on the road with them, or
Yep.
they, that kind of thing. And so in this particular case, I went and met up with this buddy of mine up at his hotel. We took off some happy hour place in Vegas. I couldn't remember the name of it, but so we hang out there. And we're ordering appetizers and blah, 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 and telling, we're all cutting up and having a good, the three of us. And, next thing you know, I take off, I go to the bathroom, I come back. Next thing you know, my buddy, he takes off, he goes to the bathroom, he comes back. This guy the producer, the general manager of the club. He gets up, he goes to the bathroom, he comes back. Before he comes back, my buddy leans over, he goes, "You're in." I go, "I'm in? What do you mean I'm in?" He goes, "He likes you." He goes, "He's going to book you." And I go, "Well, I haven't even done a season." He goes, "Doesn't matter. I vouched." He goes, "He digs your personality." He goes, "You're not," pardon expression, he goes, "you're not being a dick."
Yeah.
And sometimes that's more important than anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, awesome, So before the night was over, I hung out at my buddy's show, and this general manager of the club leans over, and he hands me his card. He goes, "I want you to call me. Not this week. Call me next week." And he goes, "I'll put you on the schedule for the first quarter of next year."
Wow.
And I'm like, I mean, I know I'm not going to headline, I'm not going to close the room, but awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So sure enough, I call him, I leave a message, and wait about a week, call again, leave a message. I get a message back from him on my voicemail about 2 weeks later telling me, "Mark, I had you on the schedule. I had every intention of booking you. However, the Maxim is closing."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Oh, the Maxim Comedy Club's closing." No, the Maxim, casinos don't close.
Right.
Well, the Maxim closed. Now it's a parking structure, I think, or whatever. But yeah, so.
Do you remember your first paycheck of doing comedy?
Oh.
Or let me rephrase the question. When you knew that you were getting paid for your first gig, do you remember that? Because I'll tell you what, when you're doing it for free, and then all of a sudden somebody says, "I'm going to pay you to do it," your mindset changes. Like, "Oh wow, now I have to be good." Well,
and I think you embrace a little more value to what you're doing.
Yeah. Do you remember that time?
I know.
How can you say no? I'll never forget.
No.
20 years ago, I went the first gig. I gave 40 talks before I got paid for it.
Oh, really?
But when all of a sudden I got paid like $250 for like 20 minutes,
right?
And it was like I literally sat across the street, like ready to throw up, ready to call them and tell them I can't come. I was so nervous because they were paying me now.
Wow.
And so that's why, as an entertainer, that's why I couldn't wait to ask you that.
Well, what I said, what I was trying to say is, I think when I first got paid, I was still in Albuquerque.
Okay.
I got tossed a couple of
fortune cookies.
I graduated way beyond the Chinese joint. Well, it was like an MC spot.
Okay.
Morris hosting, and I want to say I got paid $20 or $25.
Okay.
And maybe a bar tab or something like that.
Have you ever had an embarrassing moment?
How long's the show? Yeah, too many to count, and most of them hopefully I've blocked out of my memory.
Right. Share one with us though. And the reason why, Mark, I asked you to share this is because whatever happens in life, you don't have to be a comic or a motivational speaker. You can be a construction worker. You can be a waitress. You have embarrassing moments.
Oh, absolutely.
In life. The reason why I asked you to say that is because I want people to understand it's okay to laugh at yourself.
Oh,
sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Tell us about one of the times that maybe you bombed.
Probably, I'd rather tell you about. Let's go more embarrassing than bombed.
Okay. Wow. Nice.
And they could be one and the same. One place sticks out after the second time you asked the question. This goes way back. I was living in the Bay Area, and I was booked to do a show somewhere down the peninsula. It doesn't really matter. There's like 5 or 6 of us on the bill.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you now what I was getting paid, $50, $75, whatever it might have been. There was probably 5 or 6 of us. I was going up in the middle of the pack, doing my 20 or whatever it was. And I remember not that long into my set, 5, 6, 7 minutes. And again, sometimes you're in the bright light. You can't really see past the first row.
Yep.
And there's a voice. There's what I consider to be a heckler. Probably sitting half or 2/3 the way back on the right side of stage right, and there was something just kind of unintelligible, but I kind of had to address it because the whole room could hear it. So I kind of popped the person a little bit, and it got kind of a laugh, and next thing I hear something again. When you go after hecklers, you got to kind of do it with kid gloves initially, because you don't want to pull out the cannon when a little pop gun will do initially, and eventually I probably tangled with this person like 3 or 4 times. I didn't get vicious, but had to do what I could do to kind of quell the thing and what have you. And I get done and, do my closing bit. Thank you very much, blah, blah, blah. And there's probably 100, 120 people in the room at this particular gig. And MC's coming up, and the MC's like white as a ghost. And I'm like, oh, what's his deal? Hey, thank you. I walk off stage and the next act's getting ready to go up, and he goes, dude, and the guy who was emceeing the show was the producer of the show.
Okay.
And he goes, dude, the heckler that you're, I go, what about it? He goes, how do I explain it to you? But it's, they got a whole table of challenge people that worked at like a Roy Rogers roast beef place, and was one of those kids. I say kids, they were 17, 18, 20 years, probably 20 years old. It could have been 30, or whatever. And he was back here getting all worried that the table was going to get upset that
He was disabled.
Yes. Yeah, mentally challenged, or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to be rude all these years. And so now I'm thinking, oh God, I mean, I wasn't trying to offend anybody, certainly not anybody, in that situation. So after the show's over, I kind of walk over towards that table and I introduce myself. Somebody pointed out, that's the guy, that's the one, and I walked up, introduced myself, big grin ear to ear, and their sponsor, whoever was there, that was kind of arranging transportation and was there for them or whatever. Anyway, shook hands and he invited me to the Roy Rogers restaurant, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
If you ever come, blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, the person called me aside and she thanked me. And I said, for what? I go, I after the fact, I felt foolish, like I felt about a half an inch tall. She goes, no. The table and whatever his name, Tommy or whoever it was having so much fun. It was all in the moment, and you were treating him like anybody else.
Wow.
And she goes, I could see in their eyes that they loved the attention that you gave them, and you were never cruel in what you said. You weren't, and I was just like, okay, thank you. Because she could tell I was a little, I was a little taken back that I didn't want to ruin somebody's night out, let alone in that situation.
Have you ever offended somebody and they wanted to get together with you afterwards and take you out back?
Boy, I'm trying to think.
Because you're a pretty big guy. I wouldn't want to tangle with you anyways, but...
I've had a couple people take exception to a couple of bits over the years, and...
You're so politically correct. I love it.
And especially in this day of like Facebook and email and stuff like that, I've had a couple of people send me messages on Facebook and have asked me to, I prefer if you not do that bit anymore. And I think to myself, there was 150 people at that show.
Yeah.
It got big laughs, and if there was one person that didn't dig that one bit, I'm still batting pretty good in that situation.
So the cliche of going to a comedy show is never to sit in front. Are you one of those comics, that have fun? Because I don't want to say pick on. Have
you just
fun.
Did. You just said it.
So are you one of those guys?
You're an enabler.
Is there a reason why people don't like to sit in the front row of a comedy show? Do you men and women use that?
It's usually one or the other, by the way. People either want to sit up front or they don't want to be anywhere near the front.
Right, yeah.
Okay, we call that the moat. Because sometimes you'll end up doing it. And it's a show where the room seats, say, 300 people, and there's only 100 people there, and there's nobody in the first two rows.
Right.
And I have to explain to them, folks, you left the first two rows empty. What that means is the third row becomes the first row.
That's right, exactly.
And me personally, unless someone else initiates and is drunk and stupid and is interrupting the show, obviously then the gloves come off. But I mean, as far as quote unquote picking on, I involve the audience sometimes in my show, but it's very playful, and it's never to it's never to make them look awful or anything like that. It's usually something very playful.
So you have a bit about that?
I actually brought a clip. I read your mind, and this is actually
set it up.
Well, this is actually I was talking about golf as I do a couple times in my show, and I was talking about golf, and I think I had asked the audience if we had any golfers in the room, and it just kind of went from there. So, how long have you been playing golf?
3 years.
3 years? Wow, you must be tired. Me, 3-4 hours, I'm done for the day, but old AJ swinging that putter around, just 3 years in a row, just finally came in here to watch the fun show. What kind of score do you hit? Golf, not putt-putt. Talk to me.
I don't play golf.
You really don't play golf? You got excited earlier. You just... Good for you. Because that windmill hole, that's a bitch, isn't it? Windmill. It's funny because some of the non-golfers are looking like they put real windmills on golf courses. We never seen them from the road. And you won't. That's why we take those little carts back in the woods. No, putt-putt golf. It's fun. It's fun. How old are you, AJ? 22. Playing putt-putt. That joke writes itself. Are you married, AJ? Are you? No? No? Hope I'm not ruining your chances here. Well, she seems to be very enamored by you. Look at that. Good for you. Good for you.
You are amazing at what you do. Let me just say it, my friend. Let me just say it. You made me laugh again, I've heard it.
That was AJ. That was AJ, 22-year-old AJ.
Do you ever do impressions anymore? Because the reason why I ask this is because a lot of comics, they get their start doing,
voices.
Voices and impressions. Do you have certain voices you go to?
Well, the funny thing is, I did more of them early on, the first 10, 12 years or so. And now I'm at that point after doing stand-up for 30 plus years, some of my voices have died. Okay. The actual people, okay, who own those voices. And I'm not someone who can just pick up and do Christopher Walken, which is the go-to nowadays. It's like the Walken nowadays is the Jack Nicholson of the early '90s or whatever. But it's funny because sometimes I'll do a show or even sometimes a private event. Or for instance, I did a gig in Kenosha a couple months ago at a really cool newer club there, and it happened to be the late show on a Saturday night. I think the youngest person in the room was probably close to 50. Just happened to be an older crowd.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what it was I did, but it turned into a riff, and I ended up doing Walter Brennan and Jimmy Stewart, and these people are going out of their minds. And I'm going, and in the back of my head while I'm doing this, I'm going out of my mind thinking to myself, I can't believe, A, I dusted these voices off and pulled them in pretty decent, and B, I'm actually getting to do voices that people understand, they get,
Right.
I'm up there, you're dag nabbit Luke, and...
So you usually a comedian goes up there for what's the amount of time that a comedian gets?
Well, and again, it goes with experience. It goes with kind of where you're at in your career. Usually,
I know you start out at 5. I mean, so is it like a 30-minute is like the top?
No,
a little bit more.
Usually, a host or MC of the show is going to come out of the shoot and do 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
The next act on the bill, if there's no guest spot, the guest spot's usually going to do 5 to 10 minutes. And that's someone who's just looking for some stage time in front of a live audience. But your next paid person on the show is normally considered what we call the feature act.
Okay.
Person that goes up before the closer or headliner, depending how you want to look at that. But then the headliner in a club where you're doing a 3-man show traditionally is going to do about 45 minutes or so.
Okay.
If it's a 2-man show, like a bar gig, so to speak,
yeah,
usually the first act comes out and does anywhere from 25 to 35, and then you come out and close the show with at least an hour. So,
has it ever happened to you that you get there thinking that there was going to be another 1 or 2 comics there, and then all of a sudden now you have to eat up an hour and a half to almost 2 hours?
That's happened on a handful of occasions, yes. And usually before I walk up on the stage, it happened one time I know in Muskegon, Michigan, many years ago, and there was a snowstorm, and they're waiting for a crowd to show up, and we were waiting for my opening act to show up, and finally we're half an hour past the actual start time, and there's about 20 people in the room that held about 200.
Right.
And finally the owner just says, well, he goes, should we keep waiting for the other guy? I go, personally speaking, before these people start to, work against us and start to leave, I think we should start the show. I said, trust me. I said, I'll cover the time. I said, but I I also expect to get both checks.
Right.
You know.
So you're good at working on your feet, literally.
You have to be. Yeah, at this point. Now, certainly if the same situation were presented at the first 3 or 4 years in, I'd be like, no, I've got 30 minutes.
If somebody made a movie of your life, would it be a drama, a comedy romantic, just a comedy, an action, or a science fiction?
Definitely not science fiction. I'm not a sci-fi fan at all. It would probably have elements of drama, comedy, and hopefully a little bit of romance, with another person, Are you lonely tonight?
Oh, so you sing too?
I do not.
No.
I back in the day of karaoke, the only thing I ever sang was songs by people that if you could scream it, you could sing it.
Yep.
Otis Redding, Joe Cocker, that kind of thing. But because you think about my life, back in the day pre-comedy, there was some funny that would sneak out, and there was a lot of eye rolling by the former wife and that kind of thing.
Right.
And but I mentioned earlier she was Sicilian. She had me out voweled right from the get go. So, there was no messing, when it came to family reunions and stuff like that.
So it would be your life if they made a movie out of it.
It would be a dramedy.
Dramedy. I like it. I like that. Okay, I like that. Kind of like a Hallmark movie then.
Yeah.
Favorite day of the week?
Payday.
Which is what, every day for you?
It could be. Yeah, very well could be. Favorite day of the week. Man, oh man, if I could describe a great day, it would be I'm on the road somewhere, meaning I'm A, going to perform, and B, I'm going to earn some money, and I would get up that day at 8 or 9 in the morning and go play 18 holes of golf. And then I'm somewhere where I've got friends or family. I get to visit them in the mid-afternoon.
Yep.
And then go back and shower and get ready and do a show to a sold-out place, man.
Favorite place to hang out?
Wow, I'll tell you, when I'm home in Wyandotte, I've got a number of hangouts. I got a number of places that I love. And again, I don't mean to make this too downriver-ish because...
I know, because we have people going to be listening to this in Asia, so they don't even know where Wyandotte is.
You've got listeners all over. Yeah, but for your listeners here in the Detroit area, though, man, I got to give a shout out to like places like Chesley's on 4th Street in Lincoln Park, the Oak Cafe, awesome food, and I've known the family there for many, many years. And then just the list goes on.
Joe's Hamburger, you been there?
Oh, absolutely.
Jeremy is a great guy.
Awesome food, and he's a great guy. He's a big proponent of the city as well.
Absolutely, in the Silver Ballroom right next door.
Yeah. And and that kind of, you talk about people like Jeremy and his place and how he promotes the city. And again, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but for the last 10 years, every December I go back and do a benefit show for the Toys for Tots and the Wyandotte Goodfellows. And I think anybody that is in my position, you'd want to do something like that,
If you could be a cartoon character for 1 week, who would it be?
Ooh, man, oh man, probably Roadrunner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I've always been big and slow. I think it'd be cool just once to win a race.
Hey, how can people find your CDs, and how can people find more about you? Do you have a website?
Absolutely. I've had a website I've had the domain, I want to say really close to 20 years now. So I had one really early on, and it's just my last name, KNOPE, Knope.com.
You've done this once or twice because I don't have to tell you to spell it out.
I didn't have to spell it, and I tried not to pop my P too hard there. So, but it's just Knope.com, and that's got a little bit of everything on it as far as my club work, corporate work, voiceover work, you name it. And there's some video clips. And there's a lot of stuff on there. And of course, I'm on Facebook. I've got a comedian Facebook page on there, Comedian Mark Knope, and I've also got a personal page. And I'm on Instagram, The Knope Life on Instagram.
So why would somebody book you to do an event?
I think the biggest reason people would want to come to me to get entertain their clients, entertain their supporters or whoever it might be. First of all, experience.
Yep.
Second of all, I've done literally hundreds of non-comedy club performances over the year.
Yeah. You've done like over 7,000 shows.
Yeah.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, the first few years, I was averaging 350 plus shows a year. But that's the thing. I mean, because a lot of times nowadays you get people that are looking to book a gig for, whether it's their fundraiser, their VFW hall.
That's what I was just going to say, and that's what I wanted to hit on was fundraising. People don't even really realize that you could help them make money for their organization. You're doing something next week or maybe this weekend for the Southgate softball or something like that.
Yep, the girls basketball in
Or
Southgate,
basketball.
Michigan.
Okay, yeah.
I've never kept track for a finite number, but I think over the last 17, 18 years, I think I've helped raise $200,000+. There was a detective here in Southgate, Michigan, by the name of Joe Walsh. For 10 consecutive years, he booked shows with me, and I produced the shows.
That's the last time I saw it. Saw your show.
Oh, okay. It was
Yeah,
one
it
of
was
Joe's.
at the Southgate Ice Arena.
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
And Joe put him on for 10 years, and I talked to him a few years ago and asked him, I said, and the reason why I went 10 years, he had kids, and 1 year it'd be for his kids' baseball team,
Yeah.
next year it'd be for the girls' cheerleading or whatever he'd designate. And I asked him after he had finished, after the kids finally, got out of that phase of their life and he handed it off, I said, Joe, any idea how much money did we raise over that 10 years? Because he had a couple of years where he had over 400 people at that.
Oh my gosh!
That hall.
Yeah, easy.
And he had a couple of years where he made in the neighborhood of almost 10 grand in an evening. And he told me, he goes, we raised easily over $60,000 just on those 10 shows.
That is so cool, man. Just by making people laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. And and it was through Joe, to a degree, after the first 2 or 3 years of him doing it, he kind of helped rough out the schematic of the best way to put these things together, make them all inclusive, and the ways to keep the costs down, but yet have a decent budget for the talent. And I tell people a lot of times, this is what I want to charge to bring in a full show, 3 acts, very experienced, good comics. People aren't going to offend, people that are going to be funny but not filthy.
Yeah.
I always tell people, is it okay if I'm naughty but not nasty?
Right.
And when you put it to them in those terms, they go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's good. Innuendo's fine, that kind of thing. And a lot of times I tell them, you might find a way to book a cheaper show, okay? But I'm going to be hands-on with you the whole way. I'm going to produce the promo. I'm going to handpick the comedians that will work best for your group.
Yeah.
And in doing so, because we're going to pay them a decent fee, a decent wage, we're not going to get that situation where people are constantly canceling because they got a better paying gig, or they got a 2-night gig instead of this one or whatever. Yeah. If we book them out 2 or 3 months in advance for X amount, well, now they're going to find something to go on that corresponding Friday with that Saturday we booked, and so we're good.
Before we wrap things up, if you walked out of here, stopped at the local store, bought a lottery ticket, and tomorrow you won the Mega Millions, would anything change?
About me personally?
Just about what? I mean, would you keep doing what you're doing? Well, I mean,
yeah, I would have to do it secretly because I think too many club owners or people that be in a position to book me would be like, well, he doesn't need the money anymore.
Right.
So, and the cool thing is, living in Ohio now, and I actually looked this up one time 7, 8 years ago when one of the Mega Millions was way up there. Ohio is one of the states where you can actually form an LLC and you can claim the winnings in the name of the corporation.
Nice.
So I would probably go stealth. I would probably do it in that mode. I would probably not claim it personally. I'd have to get tax people involved and stuff because Lord knows we don't want to get those guys on me again.
Yeah, because here's the deal. A lot of people say, oh my God, I would change my whole life. I hate what I do. I wouldn't change anything about what I do. Yeah. I would still be Johnny D, the motivational cowboy, and I would still do everything that I'm doing today. My life wouldn't change.
Right. I agree. It's funny. I've even told people. It's funny. I was with a friend of mine a couple years ago up at the Detroit Auto Show, and they said, "Boy, if you could buy any car in this whole place, what would you get?" And I said, "Well, I'm partial to GM. My parents, my dad, my grandpa, we used to buy his used Impalas for every 3 years he'd get a new one, and my dad and him would negotiate over a beer at a place called Lens Inn in Wyandotte, and we'd be driving his old one, when he was getting his new one. And I've told my friends, I said, to be honest with you, especially since that 14 one came out, I'd probably upgrade to an Impala. And they just look at me and go, what are you, nuts? I go, I like the car.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it's just like me with my Silverados. There's a reason why I have a brand new one sitting in the driveway. It's because I like them. I don't want anything else.
Sure.
I got it because I want it.
Sure. I mean, I look at vehicles for transportation.
Right.
You know, if you're going to like me better because I drive a Corvette, well, then you're
you're not my friend.
Yeah. So.
A phrase you live by every single day.
Well, you know, and I don't want to get too schmaltzy here, but I really honestly think the golden rule, do unto others, is something everybody should aspire to the best you can. Obviously, it's not going to happen all the time. But the other thing that I've kind of really adhered to is, and this has been something I've thought for a long time, is life is a series of choices. Make good ones.
I love it. We are literally going to end the podcast, and I know that you said earlier not to, and you made sure all the listeners knew, not to ever, ever, ever ask a comic to tell us a joke. But I thought, what better way to end this podcast than you live telling us a joke?
Johnny D.
What's up?
Audience of one.
Just me and you, brother.
I'm going to give you a joke that is worth all the money you paid to hear. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
That's all you get for free.
Well, hang on a second. I don't have much in my pocket anyways.
Well, I got me a bag of pretzels here.
I know, those unique pretzels.
You betcha.
Hey, let me ask you this. Is there a joke that you call it your to-go joke? Like when you are put on the spot.
Okay, I said nasty and naughty earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. This one's naughty. If you guys are in your car driving right now, hopefully I don't cause any accidents. This is an old joke. Mm-hmm. It's a street joke. It's a joke. Older couple goes to the doctor's office, and it's a newer office. The doctor's not very busy, and the old gentleman walks up and he says to the doc, he goes, Doc, he goes, we'd like to go in your examination room, make love, have you watch us, make sure we're doing everything okay. And the doctor's kind of thinking it's kind of a strange request, but he goes, man, I'm kind of new and it's not very busy. And he looks at me and goes, you're going to have to pay for an office call. And the old man goes, that's okay. So the three of them, they go in the examination room. The old couple, they get undressed. They do it. They get done. The doctor kind of looks at him and shrugs his shoulders. Goes, yeah, you guys, tab A went into slot B, rock and roll. You guys. And so they get dressed and they leave. Next day, same couple, same request. And the doctor's thinking, this is getting kind of creepy. But again, I got an empty waiting room.
Right.
Sure. Come on back to room 4, So they go back in there, and the old couple, same thing, get undressed. They do it. The doctor looks at him. Hey, you're 2 for 2. Rock on. Okay. Get dressed. Pay the lady, So third day, same couple, same request. Now the doctor's got some patients in the waiting room, and things are kind of hectic that day. And the doctor looks at me and goes, this is getting kind of weird. What's going on? And the old guy looks at the doc and goes, all right, fair enough. I'm married. We can't go to my place. She's married. We can't go to her place. Holiday Inn charges $100 for a room. Best Western charges $80 for a room. You charge $40. Medicare picks up $28.
I love it. Hey, how can everybody find you again?
KNOPE.com. That's my website. It's just my last name, KNOPE.com. And I'm all over Facebook, Mark Knope or Comedian Mark Knope. And you can also find me on Instagram, The Knope Life.
And I love your Instagram. Your Instagram's awesome. You always have cool stuff up there. And Mark, I can't thank you enough. I mean, I can't believe it's been like over an hour now that we've been hanging out. So
I had a great time, man.
I encourage everybody to go check out his website and buy one of his CDs and book him for your next corporate gig. Again, this is Johnny D, the motivational cowboy, telling all of you, be safe, have fun, have yourselves an outstanding day, and don't forget that you can download all the Outstanding Life podcasts at motivationalcowboy.com, soundcloud.com/Outstanding Life podcast, and don't forget, you can also find us on Apple Podcasts. This is Johnny D, the motivational cowboy, telling you, be safe, have fun, and have yourselves an outstanding day. Mark, thank you again, my friend.
Thank you.
Outstanding Life is a Soul Bridge Studio production.